Greetings to all of you. This will be my last General Secretary's report. So there might be some remarks that I'll make that will be a little more personal than normal. 2020 has been a year of surprises for all of us. Beginning in March, our plans and schedules have all been dramatically altered. And the IBC has been no exception, beginning with the last-minute cancellation or postponement of our Ministry Leadership Conference in Dubrovnik, Croatia. All of our meetings, one after another, have had to be changed. Even this meeting, for the very first time, is going to be an online meeting. It's also been this year a year of transition in the IBC. In March, we called a special online meeting to vote on the recommendation of the GS Search Committee team that we would call Tim Faulkner as our new General Secretary, and it was approved overwhelmingly. I am full of joy and optimism over this, knowing that Tim will bring fresh ideas and strategic plans to ensure the health and growth of the IBC in the days to come. Thanks to Nick Howard and the GS Search team, who did a great job not only in their selection, but also in going through the process of searching for a new GS. Well, last year in Naples, I set forth three major objectives for the year: transition, progress, and partnership. And the goals and action plans that were related to these three primary objectives were closely tied with the work of our core strategies and the executive leadership team. Recently, I reviewed with all of our core strategy directors their progress in achieving their objectives in light of the unexpected changes that coronavirus brought. And I'm very pleased that much of what we hope to achieve this year has been accomplished, although not in the way that we anticipated. Of course, we don't minimize the discouragement and negative effects that the coronavirus has brought, but our online meetings have enabled us. They've served as a resource that have helped us to connect as we have prayed together and struggled together to minister effectively. So although we're going to hear reports from all of our core strategy directors, I want to mention just a few of the areas where I believe we've made significant progress and had good participation. First of all, multiplying churches. Our interest in and participation of planting new churches has actually increased through our online church multiplication networks that Daryl Evitz has started this year. My own pastor, Karsten Lotz, will share with you that it's a result of the constant focus on church multiplication, church planting, that our church is actually planting a church right now. In the area of developing resources, we've seen church participation with the Right Now media increased exponentially. And that's been especially true for those of you who've taken advantage of the children's programs that have become available. Our residency programs that we began just last year have been, in my opinion, a great success. You'll hear a testimony later from Philip Vandegrift, who served in Wiesbaden, how God used that year to grow him in his certainty of God's call and his growth as a minister of the gospel. In the area of empowering leaders, we've seen connections made and empowerment as we have had webinars and even a face group for pastors, as well as a new online training opportunity with our partner, B.H. Carroll Seminary. In spite of our having to postpone our ministry leadership conference, David Fresh saw that the impetus that we had started has continued as we've met with Disciple Life ministers, and many of us are now implementing some of the things that we wanted to learn about and accomplish at our ministry leadership conference. And in the area of strengthening churches, Barry Cole and the pastoral care team have made it a special effort to contact and pray with and talk with our different pastors around the convention. Barry has also worked very hard to help our churches to frame their ministries based on God's mission and vision for their particular churches. And in the area of building connections, our women's, men's, and youth teams have continued to plan for the future. The women and youth, in spite of the fact that their conferences had to be postponed this year. And in the area of missions, our convention, through the leadership of Scott Corwin, has been able to assist the people most affected by the COVID-19 virus, the refugees, and focusing in Lebanon, in Greece, and in Turkey. And we've continued our mission support of church planters in other countries, in Latvia. And also we began supporting a church planter in Albania, even in the midst of the coronavirus. And Scott has led his church, IBC Berlin, to be at the forefront of helping to plant new churches outside the IBC. One of the things that Laurie and I enjoy doing, I believe it's an essential investment of my time and energy as General Secretary, has been to visit churches. Well, our church visits were put on hold for about 6 months this year. And that was a disappointment for us, not being able to see our pastors and leaders in the various IBC churches, and also not being able to see our pastors and leaders at our ministry leadership conference and other conferences has been a disappointment. I am grateful for the few churches that we were able to visit, starting in August and continuing through October. Perhaps the most important work that I do strategically is working with the IBC leadership, our presidents and core strategy directors who make up the executive leadership team. They are the committed carriers and the dedicated implementers of our mission to mobilize and multiply disciple-making churches, and also our vision to see a movement of global-minded churches that are reproducing healthy disciples, leaders, and congregations. And this year, there were some important decisions made and steps taken that I believe are going to help us in the next year to improve our help with the churches. The ELT deserves your support and your thanks. I also want to thank Eric Nielsen and the IBC finance team. They've done a splendid job of putting together the budget that we'll be voting on in the next day. The budget for the upcoming year has enabled us to accomplish our ministry priorities to fund them in spite of the fact that we've had a leaner year this past year. And of course, the IBC staff, they continue to function well in every way. This year required, I believe, special agility as circumstances in our convention were in constant flux. The rapid changes to move to online platforms, our greater communication needs with our leaders, and our sensitivity to Zoom fatigue were handled effectively. The staff has also put in a lot of time and energy to help Jackie Faulkner with the transition of leadership. Lorraine Stringer and Judith Lynn Maxwell, our two IBC staff support members, are a great treasure. They are great examples of servant leadership in the IBC. And of course, I have to give thanks to Laurie, my wife. Laurie and I have walked together, not only this year, but for the past 18 years as General Secretary and wife. And I can't express the depth of my appreciation and love for her support and care. And there have been numerous times when her impact was far greater than mine in the lives of people in the IBC. We have also served together, and she served faithfully in our local church through the years. In our early years of ministry, Laurie and I struggled with a call to missions. And after prayer and discussion and counsel, we agreed that we were going to place our trust in the Lord to lead us, and that we would follow wherever and whatever he called us to do. And our years in the IBC have enabled us to see and experience more than we could have ever imagined in those days. God has been good to us. So although we look forward to being closer to family in the United States, the IBC will always have a warm and fixed place in our hearts. You, the people, and the churches that make up the IBC family are the focus of everything that we do as leaders in the convention. And this year, as I've talked with pastors and other leaders, I've been encouraged by the creativity and commitment of our leaders in churches around the convention. When you think of all the things you've done, having to move to online worship services, mobilize discipleship and ministry in new ways, seeking to lead sheep who were scattered and often isolated, all of these were significant challenges that our church leaders faced and met. And in the process, I believe we made some discoveries that are going to help us to be even more effective in the future. IBC churches have carried on with the ministries that they've had for years. Many churches recorded increased participation in their worship services and discipleship ministries and other ministries. Church plants continued to move ahead even though they couldn't meet physically. And in times of need, people in our churches who may have never been involved have stepped up because of the needs that they have had. The Holy Spirit empowered church has found new and creative ways to be the church. Well, what's ahead? I think that God's faithfulness to us during these days in 2020 provides us a solid assurance that he's going to continue his good work in us and through us. Jesus' promise to build his church and to overcome the gates of hell is still valid. We can move forward with the same confidence that Moses expressed at the end of his prayer in Psalm 90 when he said, "May the favor of the Lord our God rest upon us. Establish the work of our hands for us." Yes, establish the work of our hands.